Welcome to the Dream Mason Podcast. I'm your host, Alex Terranova. A Dream Mason is a person who's brave enough to declare they have a dream and committed enough to do the work to build it. I know we all have a Dream Mason inside of us, and my dream for this podcast is to support us by giving us a glimpse inside the hearts and minds of leaders, creators, and innovators to help us unleash our inner Dream Mason. Because your dreams don't build themselves. Hey, David, how are you?
I am so amazing. Thank you so much, Alex. Thank you for creating this Dream Mason world, and thanks for inviting me to be part of it.
Yeah, well, thank you. I want to take a moment and tell some of the viewers about you. But you are part of my creation and what I'm building. It actually wouldn't be here if it weren't for experiences that I had with you in your meditations. And that's the first thing I really want to share with people is when I started my transformation about 4 years ago, I was not the heart-centered, compassionate, loving person that I am now and that I'm continuing to work to be. And I was not spiritual by any means. And one of the things I first picked up was I wanted to start a meditation practice. And I just couldn't get into it. It's the way people, it's uncomfortable. And my mom and my aunt were big fans of yours for years. And they said to me, you need to check out this guy. You'll love it. And I remember the first time I listened, what grabbed me was just the levity and the calmness of who you are. But also you gave me a place to kind of anchor into. You had like a focus of some kind or an intention for a lot of your meditations that are on your website. And I remember being like, I can do this. I can hold on to this. And it's still, now 4 years later, I've done lots of different kinds of meditation. It's still my favorite place to go back to are yours. They're very, very grounding. And I want to share one of the most powerful experiences I had was one of your meditations after my grandmother passed away. And I did the meditation. I was living in New York at the time, and it ended up spawning me into this free writing exercise that I was able to share with my whole family and just opened up so much about my grandmother and love and who she was as love for our family. So I'm so grateful to have you here and blessed because of the past and our experience together without even knowing each other.
Yeah, well, how beautiful. Thanks for including me in your growth trajectory and in your transformation.
Thank you. So I want to share with people. So you're an internationally recognized stress management expert. You're a trainer, you're a meditation teacher, and you're an author of several books. You won the Nautilus Gold Medal winning book with Sacred Powers, which I actually have right here. There's a critically acclaimed and Amazon #1 bestseller, Distressifying, The Real World Guide to Personal Empowerment, Lasting Fulfillment and Peace of Mind. And then you also have The Secrets of Meditation, The Practical Guide to Inner Peace and Personal Transformation, which was also a Nautilus Book Award winner. And I think one of the most interesting things about you that I don't know that people would know is this wasn't like you didn't grow up. Well, maybe you did. I don't know. But you weren't like in an ashram your whole life. And what I know, and please correct me if I'm wrong or what you want to put in, is that you were in business, acquisitions, mergers, finance, and that you actually took on a whole new journey. It sounds like you transformed your life and got into working with Deepak Chopra, and we're working with him for about 10 years, running his university. And that through that and the work you do now, you've trained more than 200,000 people to meditate and over 1,000 teachers you've trained.
Yeah.
That's pretty amazing. Is that story? Is that your transformation in a very, very fast?
Yeah, that's it. Which is why I think it's so important that an important message is this is available to anyone. This is available to all of us. We can all come from where we are and launch ourselves into a dream. And actually, when I made that shift out of the corporate world to another realm, I didn't know what I wanted, but I knew what I didn't want. I knew that for me, stepping out of my pain was possible, and I was just going to go in any direction that I could to make that happen. And so that's, I'm let my journey be sort of like a tale that everyone can step into, because you're never stuck. No matter where no matter where you are, no matter what you've done, no matter how you define yourself, you can redefine and rebirth and move into that flow. And I think we can all live. We can all live a life that is truly an unfolding of our dreams and desires.
When you talk about it, it's it's almost like you've just been doing this forever, and I know you've been doing it a long time. But how did you, when I say you went from finance and mergers and acquisitions, those are cutthroat businesses. I came from the hospitality industry and running restaurant groups and things like that, and that's a pretty fast-paced industry also. But
Yeah.
how did you just go from where you were to working with Deepak Chopra? That seems like a huge it seems like a huge jump.
Yeah, well, I think pain is a really great motivator. We should always seize it. That's why when we find ourselves in pain, of course, we can always curl up into the fetal position, which seems like the best move at the time whenever we are in pain. But you know, I worked on one of the higher floors of Tower 2 of the World Trade Center, and I left that building about 6 months before 9/11. To work about 20 blocks further uptown in New York. And but I had spent my whole life doing that and living that, and either in finance or business or M&A. And it is cutthroat, and it is all about money and margins and winning. And in the wake of 9/11, suddenly all of that was thrown up in the air. And that's when I really started asking myself the deeper questions. Why am I here? What, you know, it actually happened as I was walking down the street in southern Manhattan in the wake of 9/11, where I walked past a row of cardboard boxes that people were living in, and a hand reached out of one of those boxes, grabbed my pant leg, and this face peered up at me and said, "What's going to be on your tombstone?" And that's a much bigger story, and I talk a lot about that in Sacred Powers. But that was really my aha moment. Like, what am I doing here? What is my meaning? What is my legacy? What's my purpose? What's my function? Is what I'm doing now, is that going to be my legacy, my contribution to this existence? And I felt so empty, and it felt so obviously, no, I'm definitely doing the wrong thing. And I'm somewhat of an extremist, so my wife advised me to quit my job and head off to Oxford, England, because this guy, Deepak Chopra, who I'd never heard of, was leading some meditation workshop, and there was an opportunity for personal growth, and maybe I'd find some peace. And so I did that, fairly obedient, quit my job, headed off to England, and it was just a week-long meditation retreat, but it was the first time that I had actually unplugged, and it was there that I really learned about this concept, the pattern interrupt. How do we break our non-nourishing behaviors and patterns? How do we step out of pain and move into something else? Really, how do we step out of a conditioned life into something that's more, unconditioned, or that has more possibilities? And it's by introducing a break in the action. And so that's what I did. I literally, unplugged, let go of my life, headed off to England, and every day I meditated and went pretty deep. And after like the third day of just really going deep into meditation, for the first time, some of that weight was lifted off my chest, some of the pain that I had been experiencing from pretty much my whole life being thrown up in the air. And I felt joy for the first time in many, many, many years, decades. And so when that was done, I did what, of course, you're supposed to do after hanging out with Deepak. I headed off to India in search of the guru. And I searched high and low, spent months and months and months searching for answers. And the reality was, at a certain point, I realized, oh, duh, the answer rests inside. In fact, if we can just quiet ourselves down just a little bit, we can hear the answer to every question we could ever ask in our lives. And so I really got some amazing answers to that, headed home, and just meditated every single day. And friends of mine were saying, dude, all you do is sit around and meditate now. like get a life. And I was like, oh, it's so much fun. It's so great. I'm living in bliss. And they go like, yeah, but you actually have to function. You can't go from like working 18 hours a day to just like sitting and with your eyes closed and meditating. So they said, you should go and check out your boy Deepak. He's on the West Coast. And I said, why would I want to do that? And they said, well, you could learn to teach people to meditate. And I was like, but I'm from New York. I don't care about anyone else's meditation. And they said, well, if you really want to learn something, learn to teach it. And so I said, well, I could see that. So I went out to California and approached Deepak and his partner, David Simon, and said, listen, I have this like vast business experience. Let me serve. Let me offer that up here. And in exchange, maybe you could expose me to these teachings and put me in situations where I might get closer to taking my meditation practice to a higher level. So I became the COO of the Chopra Center. And for me, that was like a beautiful dance, a balance of melding business and wellness. Because prior to that, I had really thought, if you're all business and no soul, then it's harsh. It's a tough burning world. And if you're all spiritual and that comes before the business, then ultimately you go out of business. And so I said, well, let me find how those two worlds can meld together, how I can live a more conscious existence and a more service-oriented business. And in that process, I was studying and teaching meditation almost from day one. So pretty quickly, I became certified. And then I got to teach or study meditation every single day for 10 years. And that, I'm so fortunate to have had that opportunity because I got to touch so many people who would tell me, here's what doesn't work for me. Here's what does work for me. This languaging makes sense. That other languaging is too woo-woo and kooky and I can't relate to it. And so that allowed me to really cultivate my ability to translate timeless wisdom into real world practical steps. And for me, that was like the greatest gift that could ever be given to me. And in 2012, I left that world to get out there and teach cops and teach soldiers and teach people from all over the world how to connect without it being woo-woo, without it being cult-like. And even though I look like someone who's like part of a cult.
I was just going to say, as you stroke your hair.
Right. Just so you know, this is not what I looked like when I was working in mergers and acquisitions. But for me, this is like the greatest joy to help people who otherwise are either feeling stressed out or are filled with anxiety or struggling or who are about to blow up their life. I can tell them, you don't need to blow up your life and head off to India. I've done that for you. I've taken all those crazy, kooky, worst practices and best practices. So let me share with you. I didn't even know there were tools. That was my biggest constriction. I didn't know there were tools. I didn't know that you could live a hard-charging, fast-paced, goal-oriented life and have all this magnificence and grace and ease flowing through you at the same time. And so that's really what I teach people now, how to essentially have it all, how to live the dream, and how to integrate some tools and techniques that can really help you make more conscious choices so that you can do good and do well. Because I know that's possible.
What's the thing, like you've done so much in two different worlds and you've succeeded in both of them. It sounds like it, right? Like you didn't talk too much about the success in the other one, but it really sounds like you had success and you completely did a U-turn. What's the thing that motivates you to keep going? Because you could stop and enjoy San Diego and.
Yeah, this is the sweet spot of the universe. But
I want all New Yorkers to hear that. I've lived in New York also. I'm a Southern California
I've always said that
kid.
New York is the center of the universe, but this is the sweet spot of the universe.
Oh, okay.
I believe there can be some kind of fusion there. What keeps me going is that the pain that I felt when I was lost and feeling empty and uninspired and confused and purposeless, that pain is still, very, very fresh to me, even though it's been, 15 years since those moments. And I found that I'm not better than anybody else. And my story is a lot of people's story. You know, they're in jobs and they haven't really found their right speed. They're doing things and they feel that they're compromising who they are. They're afraid to be bold and to own their impact. And that really, you know, for me, that feels like a beautiful mission to be able to share with people. You don't have to blow up your life, and you don't have to be afraid, and you can integrate things into your life. And I believe we can transform the world by transforming ourselves. And so the techniques are easy. So whether I'm teaching cops how to be a little more conscious in terms of their guardianship of their beat or their lives, or whether I'm talking to business people, showing them how they can really introduce a little more patience, a little more conscious choice making, actually let someone finish a sentence before they dive in. How proving that we're right is so overrated. Who cares about that? And that we can tap into aspects of ourselves that we have long denied out of fear or desperation, or chemicals or hormones or fight, flight, whatever you want to call it. But we are the masters of each moment, and we can make that call. And so knowing that it's possible and seeing so many people who are stuck or afraid, you know, they have one foot firmly planted in one world and the other foot out there dangling, and they're afraid to put it down. And they're certainly afraid to pick up that other foot because of they've got a good thing going. They hate their job, but they like the salary. You know, they hate the relationship that they're in. You know, they don't want to do the work to try to make it, or they're afraid to step away or to make a more, you know, they don't want to be perceived as being selfish. But I think that self-care is so important. And if we are really taking care of ourselves on an emotional level, on a physical level, that we're going to serve others in our life at a higher level as well. And that seems like something really rich and beautiful for, you know, to pursue. And that's why I do a lot of charity work, and I do a lot of things that there is no payoff, and the other things I do pay for that aspect of my life. And I believe that we can, you know, we can move in a lot of different realms. And as long as we continue to be in service, it all unfolds beautifully.
How do you I got two things from what you were sharing. One is a lot of service, a lot of giving of yourself, of your time, of your knowledge, of your resources. And I'm of the belief, and it sounds like you would agree with me, that the we get a lot further in life by giving. The more we can give, we'll actually receive. We don't give to receive, but we will. It's kind of the almost like the law of the universe. Like what goes out, it comes all back around. How do you work with people that don't see it that way? That don't, you know, in your book you talk a lot about abundance, and people that think like it's about getting and taking versus giving. How do you get them to see when there's totally just like they're just missing?
Yeah, well, you know, not everyone's receptive to just the conversation of poverty consciousness versus abundance consciousness. Sometimes it seems a little too esoteric or weird or woo-woo. Um, but if you see the world as this, there's only one slice of pie left, and I got to get it before someone else gets it, or to truly have the mindset of, you know what, the pie is big and getting bigger, and if this slice goes, bake another one, or there's more. There's, you know, I believe that this concept of owning our impact. So many times we don't do things because we believe in some way that there's like this council of elders out there judging us, you know, making the call on us like, ooh, that wouldn't be appropriate, or, oh, really? You know, you're going to do that? Or who are you to do this? You know, those types of things. And I believe that once we can say, you know what, I can live a fairly unconventional choice-making existence. I can do things that haven't necessarily been done. I mean, we think of all the great people that we admire so much in our life. Just pick, you know, and maybe you admire, you know, Elon Musk, or maybe you admire Oprah or Steve Jobs. You know, we can just keep naming people. And yes, these are larger than life characters. But so why not us? Why not us? You know, doing the thing that fills us. when's the last time you hugged someone and as you were hugging them, you're like, are they giving me as much as I'm actually transmitting to them? We never really even think that. And hopefully when we're kissing someone, that's also not going on. And so like those two simple things, like hugging and kissing, which all of us, do at some point. You don't have to be like a big hugger or kisser, but you do it, and you're not keeping score. You're not taking notes like, well, I squeezed a little bit harder than that person. And so if we can apply that same model to how we move through life, that, Einstein said energy cannot be created nor destroyed. It can only be changed from one form to another. I prefer, he's Einstein, so who am I to argue with Einstein? But I prefer the word transform rather than change, so it can only be transformed. So like there's nothing new under the sun. So we get to sort of like recreate, reinvent, rebirth, step into a new beginning pretty much in every moment. We can break the mold anytime we want. And yeah, it's going to be a little uncomfortable because no one's done it, or we think no one's done it. But why not risk that? Why not trust that somehow the universe will deliver us to exactly where we need to be? And in that moment, we'll do something that feels cool or great, or try that thing. I was advised by a lot of business coaches and by some of my mentors. About 7 years ago, I started creating a meditation and giving it away every single week. So, I've been doing that. There's over 1,000 of them now that are out there. They've all been given out there for free, and I've packaged some of them, and I've created albums out of them, and I've sold some of them as well. Because I don't want to think this is all about just give everything away and join the Peace Corps and everything's beautiful and perfect. I believe there can be that dynamic exchange, but when people said to me, "Why are you going to give it away? Won't that devalue it?" And I've said, "No, I poured my heart into that meditation, but hopefully now it'll reach 1 million people instead of 3,000 who will buy it. So let me just keep creating content until there's just this body of work that exists out there." I never thought that I would create 1,000 guided meditations, but now they're on, Spotify and Insight Timer and Amazon and iTunes and Apple Music. And so for me, that's been great to me. And what has that done? As I travel the world, people say, "Oh yeah, I listened to you on Insight Timer. It's free." I didn't get paid for that. But when the person says to me, "I listened to you," poof, is that payment? That's unbelievable. Someone in another country that I never would have met, and we're connected through a practice, through stillness and silence. And so I believe that if we live a life of service, then all things that we truly want will come to us. I think we shouldn't be reckless with it. We shouldn't be random about it. But I believe if we're purposeful, so that's why I hold teacher trainings, and people pay for that to become certified by me. And that's why I have workshops and things along those lines. But for everyone who can't come to my teacher training, or doesn't want to go that deep, or doesn't want to hang out with me in the sweet spot of the universe, I would say, well, come on, you got to be crazy not to do that. So someone who's never going to leave their couch, we can connect. The fact that you and I have been connected, for years through meditation, and members of your family, in fact. So for me, I had to reassess, what am I trying to accomplish? And a funny line that I have is like, global domination through surrender. That's like my mission. If I can just keep surrendering and allowing, then everything I want ultimately will flow to me. And if it doesn't, then maybe I should reassess why that thing is important to
me. I mean, there's so much you just gave. The thing that I'm just present to you give so much away, and like, I wouldn't have your book, right, if I didn't know you through your meditations. And I likely wouldn't have known you through your meditations if they weren't the way you provided them. And I don't know how many people I've shared your work with. Like almost every client. I mean, I think my free guide, which is like 7 ways to generate joy today on my website, when it gets to the meditation piece, I think you're the person I say, hey, if you don't know how to meditate, this is a great resource of a person to go get instructed by. And that's a gift, you know. It's not just for me, but to all these people that you provide this with. And I think one of the things I've been doing, the Course in Miracles, and one of the big takeaways, which I just hear in your speaking repeatedly, it's like you can't pour from an empty cup, right? And when we're hoarding things or keeping them or afraid to share, we're actually telling the world or the universe that we don't have enough or we don't have it. And so then we get more of that. And when we freely give, it's kind of like we create more and more space for new things. I just had a family dinner, and one of the things that I thought about when I was at the dinner was when I was a kid, I used to never share. People would want to take food from my plate, or you'd be like trying to get the last one, and there was never a scarcity of food. Not in my house, there was plenty of food. And I thought now how it's so much easier and so much more enjoyable to actually share and let other people. And there's still, sometimes you have something you really like, but when you get to share it with somebody, the enjoyment you get, kind of the same as what you said when you meet somebody in another country and they tell you it doesn't have to, and it could be anything. Sharing, it opens up, it connects us. And I think that's what we all want, is we want connection, we want love. We actually want to hug a little tighter and kiss a little more. Um, but it's really apparent in who you are that these are the things you're sharing.
Yeah, life's too short to be keeping score. At a certain point, everyone and everything we love will be gone. And at a certain point, will be gone. So we have to trust in something bigger than us. And I'm not saying, who you need to pray to or anything like that, but we need to trust that there's something bigger than us. And if we can trust that there's something bigger than us, then uh, whatever that thing is or whatever that being is, um, that should give us the confidence that, the next wave of this, wherever that takes us, is also going to deliver us to exactly where we need to be. And that's why, I've often said, this moment is perfect because every single moment leading up to this moment has been perfect. The pain, the trauma, the agony, the wounds, the breakups, the heartaches, all that has taken us to this moment. And then we get to ask the question, all right, here we are. What are we going to do with it? Are we going to talk about being a victim forever? Or shall we move from victim to survivor to thriver? Shall we take that journey knowing that we can be a little bolder, that we can trust a little more, that we can accept that we're in the right spot, and we can also let go of stuff. Stuff's not working. If you're running a company and stuff's not working, you stop doing it. You're like, this doesn't work. We've all been in one of those meetings at a company. Everyone who's with us right now, has been in one of those meetings at some company where someone has said, why do we do this? And then someone says, we've always done that, Yep. And it's like, shall we continue to do it just because we've always done it? And we can always make those exact same bold moves in our own life. Why should I continue this behavior? How's that working for you? Let's stop it today. And I think that meditation is the tool that allows us to go from condition. Let me take a break here. And then an unconditioned moment. Maybe we go back doing the exact same thing we were doing. But if we keep allowing that break to come in, maybe the next step will be a little different. Maybe it can be a little more purposeful. And so, I've made a commitment to, I don't do anything that doesn't feel great. I get forced into things and I'll say to myself, I created this. I am hanging out in a room of people and I don't want to be here, but I said yes at some point and I traveled to that space. So I am here. It's a co-creation in this moment, but I'm trying to make all of my decisions with greater purpose. And I've been doing that now for about 11 years, where I'm saying I don't hang out with somebody unless I love them. And when I find myself in a space and it's and I'm not loving that person, I'll say, well, either I need to start loving them or I need to leave the room. It's one of the two. I need to make that move. And I think we all get to choose that. So when people say, oh, I have to go visit my whatever. No, you don't. You get to visit. And you can always say, no, again, there's no council of elders who are going to sit there and go, you really should have, it's not like your whole family's getting together in a room every time you make a decision to attend or not attend. And they're all going, oof, that was a very, very bad choice. He's not honoring the family code or the tradition. Same thing at work, same thing in life. And, I think we get to choose. We get to choose every single moment. And that's not a chore. That's an amazing opportunity. And if we can realize what was once closed, we can open, and if we can't open it, find another opening.
Yeah, I hear you talking a lot about the perceived meaning that we create in our minds about how things are going to go, how they should go, how they shouldn't go. I also get a lot of Viktor Frankl in your speaking, the ability to, there's the thing that happens, and then there's a moment, and then there's the reaction, and like our one power lies in that moment before the reaction to choose.
Right. And so we can even say, yeah, all this horrible shit is happening to me. But what am I going to do with it? I can acknowledge it's horrible. It's horrible in every single way. As the great sage Popeye the Sailor Man said, it's all I can stands. I can't stands no more. We get to choose that. And that's, I'm a big fan of Viktor Frankl. And just that ability of like, it's coming into us. We can't control that. Life is happening. How we digest it, how we ingest it, how we translate it, how we interpret it, how we then express it or flow it out, all of that's in our control. And, there's a beautiful line in the Bhagavad Gita, chapter 2, verse 47. We have total control over our own actions and no control over the fruit of those actions. And we spend so much time in the fruit. And that's one of the reasons that we fear to act. We create this whole fruit of these potential things that could unfold. If I do this, they'll think that, or they'll say that, or I'll be perceived as this. And instead, like, if you're going to do it, own it. Own that stuff. Own your boldness, and or own your introspection. But back to Viktor Frankl, when we meditate, when we ritualize it, and when we show up and do it every day, it's like brushing our teeth. Our teeth are white because we brush them. We keep our teeth because we brush them every day, not because we go to the dentist and the dentist goes, "Woof, your mouth is a horror show," and then we go home and brush, wildly. If we brush, then we don't have cavities, and then we don't have dental issues. The same thing. If we meditate every day, if we can figure out a practice, and it can be an innocent 16-second practice, and it can be a much, much longer one, and it can be guided meditations, and it can be breath work, and there's so many ways that we can connect to stillness and silence as like bookends of our day, to start our day, to set the trajectory, and to end our day, either late afternoon or early evening, to just let go of what we've absorbed. It goes back to that Viktor Frankl, this concept of like, we get to choose. But if we're wrapped up in the thing, if hormones and chemicals are surging into us, if we're living in chronic stress or fight, flight, or we're not giving ourselves any break in the action, then of course, in that moment, it's going to be a lot harder for us to choose other. But if we meditate, if we introduce pattern interrupts into our life, even if we just take a breath this long, we don't even do that. No one breathes enough on this planet. And so if we can just like, let me put a little space in between what comes in and what goes out. Let me put, 60,000 to 80,000 thoughts a day. That's a thought every 1.2 seconds. They are coming. Meditation is never designed to stop thoughts. That's like a big misconception. A lot of people think, well, I'm meditating, but I still have thoughts. Good. That means you're alive. No thoughts, flatlining. So we get to do a practice that allows us to, actually allow the thoughts to slow, not stop. But when they're slowed, then we can live our life almost in slow motion and say, oh, here's a choice. I think I'll give that one back. Next, oh, this looks better than that. And we can really start making more conscious choices. And I think that's the secret to following your dream. It's making conscious choices and not being driven by hormones, chemicals, reflexiveness, but being driven by reflectiveness. And not by knee jerk, but by purpose. And I think it all comes back to that we get to make more purposeful decisions, more unconditioned choices.
Yeah, that's my biggest takeaway from learning to meditate has been it occurs like the world slowed down and my thoughts slowed down. And then even when, so I'm less triggered, I'm less reactive when I'm in situations. I don't flip up. I was never like fly off the handle kind of person, but my mood would shift. It might not, other people might not have seen it, but I could feel a shift happen instantly. And now there's a slower transition. I get to actually choose where I go next. And I think even when I'm not able to do that, I can choose. If I notice that there's a person around me that they're able to hit that hot button in me, now instead I can actually say, you know what, I'm going to take a break from that person. But I think even that is from meditation, is the calmness, the thinking, the being more present. I'm curious because when we listen to you or when we hear you speak, you almost get this impression that like nothing could ever push your buttons or rattle you. And so I'm really interested and curious, like how you get triggered or how you get stopped, even after all these years, because you're still a human being.
Sure. I have expectations that people are going to treat me a certain way or act a certain way with me, that I'm going to have a request, and that as the request leaves my mouth, I'm expecting it's going to be met. And when it doesn't, that's like, what? So absolutely. I just want to touch on one thing before I go there.
Yeah, go ahead.
We're living in this world right now where we're watching Twitter, and Twitter's not the bad thing, but we're watching people destroy their lives over not having the ability to go, oof, that really bothered me what I just read, and then and we think that, and we do that with emails, we do that, but with social media, you can't take that back. And, just this week we watched, Roseanne Barr, blow up her life. And I'm not going to get into like, what she said or why or any of that, but clearly whoever hits that send button on the tweet isn't meditating and doesn't have a stillness and silence practice. Mm-hmm. And so, we see it, where it's coming. So yeah, stuff happens to me constantly where my need is not met. But, we have like those attention, affection, appreciation, and acceptance. Those are like the 4 needs of the heart: attention, affection, appreciation, and acceptance. And so whenever one of those 4 needs of the heart are not being met, just like there's the potential to be like, oh yeah, and then to lean in or to bark or to be harsh or to send the terminal tweet, or to post something that we're like, as we're posting it, we're like, why am I doing this? If we can integrate just a little stillness and silence into us, then we can, I have certain rituals. So when I see a tweet that pushes my button, I'll have this whole conversation with myself. Actually, I have a couple of techniques. Reaching for soda is one of my big techniques. In that moment where someone pushes my button, because we're all going to get pushed, I ask, I feel it in a certain place. I know when someone pushes my button, it's right here. It's this exact place. I feel a burning sensation, and I know it's like a fuse has been lit, and I know that heat is going to get hotter and hotter and hotter. It's going to flow up through here, and I know if it crosses my jawline, I will scorch the village. I know that. It's part of my upbringing. I'm from New York. We were like trained in that technique, and so I reach for soda in those moments. I say to myself, stop. I say it out loud in my head, stop. Then, I observe. I float up to the top of the room. So sometimes it's me and whatever that irritant is, or whoever that irritant is. I keep floating up until I'm looking down and there's just 2 children of God. Sometimes I have to go up to like clouds. Sometimes I have to go to the moon. But at a certain point, I'm up there, and it's just like when you're flying in a plane and it's just like cars look like ants. So in that moment, I'm just observing. Then I detach. So I need to put some physical space between me and the irritant. If I'm face to face with someone, I just lean back a little bit. If I'm on the phone with them, I move them away from me. If I've suddenly just gotten a text or an email and I'm on my device, I hold it away. Or if I'm on my laptop, I'll back up. But we also need to, well, I also need to put some energetic distance between me and them. And I'll do that with a breath. So I'll actually go, or if I'm, on my laptop, now, obviously if I'm face to face with someone, I don't breathe out loud, but I'll do some, some of my meditation breathing, quiet, continuous breathing or something along those lines where I'll just like do that. So that gives me my detachment physically and energetically. And then SODA, stop, observe, detach. The A is for awaken. And in that moment, we've all heard, what would Jesus do? What would the Buddha do? What would His Holiness the Dalai Lama do in this moment? This is where I ask myself, what would the best version of me do in this moment? Because I know the best version of me doesn't need to be right. The best version of me doesn't need to impose my will. The best version of me doesn't need to go, ha, gotcha. The best version of me doesn't need to get outraged. The best version of me, lives with love. The best version of me knows that, global domination through surrender. I sort of like Tai Chi it. I ole it. I let it come, ole. Or, Bruce Lee, just let that energy pass right through. So this is where I ask myself, here I am in this sacred, precious, present moment. What would the best version of me do? Now I've gotten to the point where I can ask all that in under 5 seconds. I can do stop, observe, detach, awaken, and ask myself, what would the best version of me do right now? And that takes me about 2.5 seconds. And it takes about 5 seconds for the hormones and chemicals from this little spark that's been lit to get here. And I know suddenly I've introduced a pattern interrupt. I've asked myself, what would the best version of me do? Best version of me doesn't care about that tweet. Best version of me should have stopped looking at Twitter about an hour ago. Best version of me needs to like get off social media and write something, create something, help someone, serve someone, heal something. Because I don't need to be wasting my time with this other stuff. And so, probably, 90 times out of 100, I'll choose the right thing. 10 times out of 100, yeah, I might scorch the village. But I don't believe we're here to be perfect. Upon scorching the village, as I'm scorching the village, I'll say to myself, I'm scorching the village right now. Let me, I left some poop in that room over there. Let me go back and clean it up. Let me apologize. And it's allowed me to be less harsh, more patient, allowed someone else's thought to exist. And it's really been a great growth tool for me. I think I'm a better person because of it. And, as of right now, I've written those toxic nuclear emails, but then I clear out the address line and send them to myself. Imagine that, writing a really scathing email to somebody, take their name out, send it to you, and then sit and read it, and just keep sending it to yourself. By the third time you've sent it to yourself, you realize, I definitely am not sending that to the other person. I've done that and cried when I've realized, gee, I was that angry. I could be that mean. I don't want to be that. Best version of me never wants to be that. And usually what happens is, instead of me like sending the nuclear email, I call that person up and I go, I was thinking about you and I just want to tell you how much I love you. Thank you. So that's the shift. At least if I'm angry, it's a conscious choice. But I know I could always be more articulate. I could always be more impeccable with my word. And I could always be a better version. And that's why, back to our theme of rebirth, of reinvention. I don't want to be the person I was 5 hours ago when I got upset. I want to be someone who sees, greater perspective and can allow that to just move through me so I can move forward.
How do we, I'm listening to you and I'm thinking about my life as I through you. And one of the things that's coming up in my space as I listen to you is, you're a masculine, powerful man who worked in a masculine industry in New York, in the most masculine of cities, right? And you transformed your life. And I transformed my life. And I think that, hey, what I notice out in the world is women are much more open to this, and men that own their, I want to say like their divine feminine or their powerful feminine more. Yeah. But people that are more in the masculine, whether they be men or women and more in the masculine, have more trouble with this. It seems like it's more confronting. They push it away more. It feels too woo woo, whether it is or it isn't. It's
Right.
how do we get more of those people to take a look, open up, embrace? Because I see that so much possibility for change in the world through that population of people.
I think it's so important. Obviously, when the student is ready, the teacher appears, and not everyone's ready. When you're ready, you're ready. But the reality that we have to understand is, like, the world is wholeness. The world, Earth, the universe, our existence contains darkness and light. It contains fear and love. It contains um, anger and peace. It contains the yin and yang. It contains patience and forward velocity. And quite honestly, nothing can get done unless there's both. So even the people we see as masculine, um, they're yin and yang. They actually have a divine feminine aspect that they have either repressed, or that they won't connect to, or that they won't acknowledge exists. So like, what's divine masculine? It's being a warrior. It's being a only moving forward. It's being the lock it down, get it done, power through. I get it. It's absolutely, those are the traits of that. And what's divine feminine? It's space holding. It's nourishing. It's creative. It's in this context, it's allowing there to be a breath or some type of pulling back the bow. If we could just like take that one metaphor of, like, the archer is firing, that's masculine energy. Pulling back the bow is feminine, divine feminine energy. You can't shoot the arrows unless you're pulling back. You can't accomplish your greatest stuff unless you are allowing there to be a space. And that's why even our greatest actions are preceded by stillness, by moments of reflection. It's in the Bhagavad Gita, chapter 2, verse 48, where Krishna, God, says to Arjuna, the greatest warrior of all time, when Arjuna says, so God, how am I supposed to live life? How am I supposed to walk through the world? And Krishna replies to him, Yogastha kuru karmani. Yoga stop, establish yourself in the present moment, kuru karmani, then perform action. So pull back the bow and then fire it. So get still and then act. So if we can remind ourselves that the greatest actions anyone can ever take are preceded by moments of reflection, of stillness, of divine feminine incubation energy, then we could look at any great accomplishment in sports, in war, in business, in music, in theater, in entertainment, in entrepreneurial, whatever, all preceded by a moment of incubation, of stillness and silence, of self-reflection or of reflection, of planning. So who filled with divine masculine doesn't want to have the best edge? The best edge comes from, there's a period of time when I used to work with John Thiel, who was the CEO of Merrill Lynch, and very, very gracious man. And of course, leading the thundering herd of 20,000 financial advisors, and his philosophy was, if our financial advisors have more peaceful and happy home lives, if they have better and better communication and more patient communication with their clients, if they're taking better care of themselves and really nourishing themselves, then they're going to treat our clients and their investments and their goals at a higher level. And so it's called mindful performance. We're always going to be better if we can take a breath first before we think, speak, or act. And so I don't care who you are, when you rush into something, hopefully it'll work when you proceed, not more cautiously, but just by first pulling back the bow and then launching with a little present moment and then acting with a little reflection and then speaking or acting. We're going to be a better version of ourselves. So anyone who says, no, that stuff's for softer people. It's like, okay, so let's call, let's Oprah soft, Steve Jobs soft, Richard Branson soft, we can go on and on, some of the greatest minds, of our time. These are all people who actually had daily meditation practices. And so I think that it's a tough message for someone to swallow, but that person is looking for an edge. That person is looking to be a higher performer. And if we can just slow that person down just for a minute and say, I've got a way for you to have an edge. I've got a way for you to be a more conscious performer, make a better decision in the heat of the moment. And you'll make more money from that, or you'll accomplish more, you'll hit your targets, or you'll achieve your goals, or the margins will increase, or pick the thing, whatever it is. Then who says no to that?
Yeah, I love that. Like you actually use their language, like they want an edge, and actually connected to them or the people I was hypothetically speaking about, right, from something that can anchor into them. That's great. That's beautiful. Thank you for that. I got some rapid fires for you that came to me as we were doing this. So first off, what's the biggest way? This might not be a rapid fire. This might be one more before. But what's the biggest way that this has changed your life in a personal level?
I find that I have deeper connections with everyone that I interact with. And I feel that my connections to people, certainly in the businesses that I was in, were much more transactional. And that has morphed into my connections being relationships. And so there's context built around my interactions with people as opposed to this, and that has brought greater depth to those connections. And so I don't have like the friends, the people in my life, my front row, those people, we have deeper connections. We have deeper understanding of what motivates us. I don't want to blame it on being a New Yorker, but the classic New Yorker is, I'm also a Taurus, so I'm like a Taurus type A New Yorker in Ayurveda. I'm a Pitta, that alone should make me have to like move, to move to some other place. So I would say like the odds were stacked against me, to be more reflective, or to be more patient, or to be more accepting. And I don't want that to define me. I'm really excited that I own when I'm an asshole and when I'm amazing. I want to own all of that. And I don't want to say, oh, well, the reason I was an a-hole was because of that. But the reason I'm amazing is because I'm amazing. I don't want to be so inauthentic with that. So, I want to own it all. And I want to own my commitment to being a better version. And so I think that, through my whole journey, I've been on a mission to be better, to not make the same mistakes 12 times, maybe 11, but not 12, or to learn and go, I will never make that one again, or I'm so sorry. Can you ever forgive me? Those words just came out of my mouth, and I was, I was thoughtless in that. So, I think, my biggest, the ripple that goes through me all the time is, I want to be a better version, which comes back to rebirth. I want to give myself permission to just be better than I was maybe a few hours ago. That could be a lot of pressure sometimes. So sometimes I say, can I be better than I was last week, maybe? Or can I be better than I was last month? But because I want to be a better, like, So it's not like I want more money. It's not I want greater happiness. It's like, yes, 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 all those things. But I want to be a better version. And I truly believe that we can lead with love, which is the divine feminine. And we can do that. I mean, imagine, think of like in playing hockey. If you just hold the puck on your stick and you don't give any indication of where it's going, that's like yoga kuru karmani. Just like hold it there and then do it. Same thing with a penalty kick. Same thing with quarterback sneak. Same thing. Those are sports analogies, but it's the same thing with almost anything. If we can come from a place of stillness, then our next step is going to be more expansive, more creative, and more powerful.
Yeah.
That's one definitely a long version of the answer.
But it's all good. It's good. It gave us a sense of a lot more of you. And I really wanted to know personally, like how this work has impacted your life. Because we've got to really see how it impacts everyone else through you. But so thanks for that. If you're recommending one book, what would it be? What would be aside from your own books? What would be the one book?
Oh, you mean other than this? Is there another book? The book that I would recommend that everyone read, regardless of your religious orientation, regardless of your philosophy, regardless of your belief system, is the Bhagavad Gita. The translation that I prefer is Eknath Easwaran, but there are hundreds of translations. His just happens to be poetic. And Einstein read it every day. Emerson read it every day. Thoreau read it every day. Gandhi read it every day. And you can just like pick it up and open it up and use it as a guide for like, what are the choices I should do today? How shall I live my life today? Or how can I integrate this? It's just like Course in Miracles. You could just open Course in Miracles up and go, totally. Okay, today, grievance or miracle, and then live your day, according to that. So the Gita is a magnificent story of purpose, meaning, life, death, karma, dharma, love, so many ripplings of that. And so, I've read that book several hundred times, and sometimes I've stayed just in one, one chapter, one verse, for weeks. So I would say the Bhagavad Gita, translated as the Song of the Lord, but you do not have to be, it's not a religious book. Einstein didn't read it because he was a Hindu. Einstein read it because it gave him insight into decision making. And so that's probably, it's an easy go-to for me.
If you could teach one living person, either meditation or mindfulness or, pretty much the things that you do, who would that person be?
Jeez. It sounds so totally absurd, but right now I would teach Donald Trump to connect to the stillness and silence that rests within.
It actually doesn't sound absurd at all. That's great.
I know that there would be more conscious choices. I know that. I don't know what they'd be, but I know there would be more conscious choices.
I appreciate the honesty, that saying what you really felt, whether it was the right, wrong, or otherwise answer. All right, now I got one that is just funny and playful, and it was something that my mom and I were talking about before I got on here. We've both seen photos of you where you got bracelets almost like halfway up to the forearm. How long does it take you to put them on when you got them all on? When you're fully loaded on the bracelets and the beads, how long does it take you?
When I leave my home, I'm wearing bracelets. So this is just me hanging out at home. It's probably 20 or so embedded in there. And these never come off. I've showered with these. I sleep with these. These are like my core. And then on top of that, I have like a mala bead that's been blessed by the Dalai Lama. So I wear that. Another one is coral. It's a coral mala with Rudraksha beads. So that takes away some of the fire if you believe in Ayurveda or any of that. Another one is like this bracelet that my dad got me online. He was online one day and he saw a bracelet with like some amethyst stone, and the name of the bracelet was meditate. So he bought it for me. But so I wear that. It's a silver bracelet. I'm pretty good at this. I can like pop all my bracelets on in less than 5 minutes.
That's awesome. Where can people? So people can buy your books on Amazon. That's where I got mine. They can buy them. Can they buy them right from your website?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
You can go to davidg.com and actually, if you go there, it'll have a synopsis of the book, and then it gives, I don't know. Some people are Barnes and Noble. Some people are Chapters, Indigo. Some people,
Sure.
Amazon. So there's like 12 different. I also support smaller bookstores there as well who do online stuff. And pretty much all the books are the same price, although it's hard to stand in the way of that juggernaut known as Amazon, which is like slowly controlling everything we do in life.
Well, I know on your website, they also have like some of the retreats you're doing and different places you're teaching meditation. You're going to likely meet me in person at one of those soon, because I just know learning to teach meditation is important. How else can people keep up with you? What's the best way to kind of keep track of you, keep up with you, stalk you?
I'm pretty active on social media, and it's actually me, which is insane. But so every post and every like and every comment is actually me. So you can follow me on Instagram, David G Meditation. You can follow me on Facebook. I am facebook.com/flow of love. But the site is David G. You can visit me at davidg.com, davidji.com. But my meditations are on Spotify and Insight Timer and Pandora and Apple Music and Pick It. It's there. But if you want to join the David G Sweet Spot community, which is free, and you can always unsubscribe, and I will not share your data, unlike somebody else whose initials are MZ. I will not share your data with an app or trade it in any way. Every week I send out a free guided meditation, a free video. It's sort of like it's my Dream Mason. It's my version of my Dream Mason. And so I encourage people to sign on for that, and if you like that and you don't like it, you can always leave. But I'm pretty much around, and there's at least 200 free guided meditations on my website with a whole bunch of different themes. So you should be able to find the thing that you're challenged by in a given moment, or want more of, and lock into that. And they're between 8 and 20 minutes. So.
Yeah, I think that's one of the cool things. They're all like, you can go through them and see the themes. It's so clear what they're about, but also, when I usually meditate, I go for about 20 minutes. You have those, but then you also have these like little quick 5-6 minute ones when you just need something, right. Before walking into a meeting, take 5 minutes.
Right.
David, I just want to, throughout this whole time, I was so present to you being just love and light and fire and joy and authenticity, and kind of the word that I see is just the universe. You really just hold all of it. You're so real and authentic. Thanks for doing this. Thanks for actually being somebody that I met over Instagram, connecting with me, being so open to this conversation. You're even though you're doing all these things and you've accomplished all this, you're so accessible and so real. And I think that's what makes the work you're doing so powerful. So I'm just very grateful for the time with you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you for your kind words. And we're connected forever now. I'm not going to stalk you, but we are connected through stillness and silence. And, you're doing such beautiful work and touching so many people and really raising the bar. And, people should connect and be coached by you, because you are someone who's constantly reinventing, raising it higher and higher and higher. So it's an honor to hang out with you. Thank you.
Thanks, David. I'll see you in San Diego at some point in the near future.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll see you on the beach one day.
All right. Thanks for listening to another episode of the Dream Mason Podcast. Please subscribe to the Dream Mason Podcast so you don't miss an episode. Share it with a friend and give us a review on iTunes. I am grateful to have had you here. If you want more, you can follow or reach out to me, Alex Terranova, on Instagram, at inspirationalalex or at TheDreamMason.com, or email me at alex@TheDreamMason.com. And remember, you are a Dream Mason because your dreams don't build themselves.